Good to have you join us once again. A major diplomatic debate is brewing across Africa after South Africa announced plans to begin charging foreign governments for the cost of deporting their citizens who violate the country's immigration laws.
Responsibility for enforcing immigration laws rests with the state and the state alone. There have been weaknesses in the way migration has been managed in our country. There have been weaknesses in rigorous and focused enforcement. We admit that. And there have been weaknesses of corruption. There have been gaps in our systems that have undermined public confidence. South Africans are entitled to expect better.
The announcement has sparked reactions across the continent, particularly in Nigeria, Ghana, and other African nations whose citizens have been affected by recent immigration crackdowns in South Africa. The new policy comes at a time when migration, border security, and xenophobia have become increasingly sensitive issues in the region. According to South African authorities, the government has spent enormous amounts of money detaining, processing, and deporting undocumented migrants over the past several years. Officials say the financial burden on taxpayers has become unsustainable and that countries whose citizens violate South African immigration laws should contribute to the cost associated with returning them home. The South African government revealed that more than 100,000 undocumented migrants have been deported over the past 2 years alone. Officials argue that maintaining detention facilities, conducting investigations, arranging travel documentation, and transporting deportees back to their home countries requires significant public resources. Under the proposed policy, foreign governments could be billed for expenses incurred during the detention and deportation process of their citizens. South African authorities say the move is intended to ensure greater accountability and encourage countries to cooperate more actively in managing migration issues. The announcement comes amid heightened tensions surrounding immigration in South Africa. In recent years, anti-immigration sentiment has grown in several communities where some residents blame undocumented migrants for unemployment, pressure on public services, and rising crime levels. These concerns have fueled repeated calls for stricter border controls and stronger enforcement of immigration laws. At the same time, critics argue that immigration enforcement has often been accompanied by xenophobic attitudes and attacks targeting foreign nationals, particularly migrants from other African countries. Numerous incidents involving violence, intimidation, and discrimination have been reported over the years, creating fears among migrant communities. Hundreds of Nigerians have recently returned home under evacuation and repatriation programs facilitated by the federal government. Many of those who returned describe difficult living conditions, economic exclusion, and increasing hostility towards foreigners. Ghana has also reportedly evacuated approximately 1,000 of their citizens, while several other African countries have undertaken similar operations. South African officials insist that their actions are not driven by xenophobia, but by the need to enforce immigration laws and protect national interests. President Cyril Ramaphosa has repeatedly defended the government's right to regulate who enters and remains in the country, stressing that immigration enforcement is a matter of national sovereignty. Speaking on migration issues, Ramaphosa emphasized that only authorized government agencies have the legal authority to address violations of immigration laws. His administration maintains that deportations are conducted within the framework of South African law and are necessary to maintain order within the immigration system. However, the proposal to charge foreign governments for deportation costs is expected to generate significant diplomatic discussions across Africa. Some analysts believe the policy could place additional financial pressure on countries already struggling with economic challenges. Others argue that it may encourage governments to improve documentation systems and strengthen support services for citizens living abroad. The issue is particularly sensitive because immigration remains an important economic reality for many African nations. Millions of Africans live and work outside their countries of birth, contributing billions of dollars in remittance that support families and local economies back home. Any policy that affects migrant populations, therefore, has implications far beyond immigration enforcement. Supporters of South Africa's position argue that every country has the right to expect visitors to comply with its laws. They contend the government should accept responsibility for citizens who violate immigration regulations abroad and assist in facilitating their lawful return when necessary. Critics, however, warn that the policy could strain diplomatic relations and further complicate already sensitive discussions about migration and regional cooperation. Some fear it could reinforce negative perceptions about foreign nationals and contribute to growing divisions among African countries. For Nigeria, which recently received hundreds of returning citizens from South Africa, the announcement may prompt discussions about how to better support Nigerians abroad while also addressing issues related to migration, documentation, and legal compliance. As African governments study the details of South Africa's proposal, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The continent is entering a new phase in the debate over migration, border control, and responsibility for citizens living abroad. Whether the proposed deportation charges become a model for other countries or trigger diplomatic disagreements remains to be seen. What is certain is that the conversation is no longer just about immigration. It is now about sovereignty, about accountability, regional cooperation, and the future of African mobility in an increasingly interconnected continent. The decisions made in the coming months could shape migration policies and diplomatic relations across Africa for years to come. If you found this report insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I am Cassie Tony, and many thanks for watching.